Yo, what's good? Welcome back to the Sound Lab, the newest channel on YouTube for faceplant tutorials. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that first tutorial. I'm going to be putting out new tutorials every week. So if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button below so you can stay up to date with new faceplant tutorials. But anyway, today in faceplant, we are going to be making this PHAT Dubstep Lead, and this is what it sounds like. Alright, let's jump into it. Alright, so before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that earlier this month I dropped a new track called Anxiety Attack featuring Atari, and that was released on Play Me Records' New Blood Volume 9 compilation. So if you guys want to check that out, you can find the link to all of my socials in the About section of the channel. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I've got the fan link up on there, so you can download that if you like the track. I would greatly appreciate it. But anyway, let's jump into the tutorial. Let's open a new instance of faceplant here and get started. Okay, so first things first, I threw an Xfer OTT on this sound. You can download it, it's free off the Xfer website, or you can just use Ableton stock OTT, it's up to you. But either way, I think the post-processing plays a huge role in shaping the tonality of this sound. So anyway, let's go into faceplant here, and we'll realize we have no sound when we play our MIDI. It's because we have to click in this generators window, create a wavetable first. And here we have a simple sine wave. So we're going to want to start FMing here. We're going to click outside the group and create an analog generator. We're going to put this outside the group so that we don't hear this sound. We just want to use the harmonics of it to shape this host wavetable. So to run our FM, we're going to click this green circle and we're going to map it to the phase of the wavetable. Now we can start to hear our FM. I'm going to set this to about 23%. And instead of a sine wave, we're going to be working with a square wave today. So click where it says default wavetable. We're going to go to the squares folder. And we're going to choose this melting square. And honestly, any square wave will really work well for this sound. So let's listen to the FM again. Alright, we're going to set this to about 23%. And now when we start to mess with the harmonics of this analog is when we'll really start to hear the tonality of our sound. I like to use 2, 6, 9, 12, but you can mess around with different harmonics. I'm going to set this back to 2 for now. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to add our first LFO. So down in the modulators window, you want to click and select LFO. We're going to set this to sync and make sure the rate is on 4/16. And we're going to go into the LFO editor here and start to make our shape. We're going to click where it says sine and pick a preset, go to wubs, and go to syncopated. I like to use this for a lot of the dubstep sounds. We're going to start making a shape like this. It's very similar to the LFO editor in Serum. I want to say I had something similar to this. And I may end up adjusting the shape of this. And of course, this is your own sound, guys, so feel free to make changes to this shape and make this sound your own. So that's a good start. Oh, if you don't close the window properly, I guess it doesn't save. So let's try that again. There we go, lesson learned. And obviously this shape isn't too important as long as it's something like that. So I'm going to click this X to make sure that it saves. If you click back in FacePlant, it will not save your shape. So just good information for the future. Click this orange circle. And we're going to first map it to the phase of our wavetable. Right click so you can enter a value, and then we're going to punch in 23%. And now we can start to hear some movement in the sound. That's a little too fast, so we want to switch this rate to 8/16 or 1/2. And now we're starting to get there. The next thing we want to do is click this orange circle again. And we're going to start mapping this to other things. The first thing we want to map it to is the LFO. And now we can really start to hear the shape that we just made. And if we turn these harmonics up, and again if we start to move the phase, but I'm going to set this back to 23 for now and turn this back down to 2. But that's how you make different variations of this sound. Alright, trying to remember what I did next here. Yes, we're actually going to make another LFO. So click down in this modulators window again and create an LFO and set this to sync and set it to 1/2 again. We're going to open up this LFO editor window, click sign to choose a preset, go to wubs, and go to syncopated again, and this time we're just going to make a little bit different of a shape. A little something like this. So the reason I made this LFO is because I'm going to start messing with the sync knob here on this analog, and I want to use this LFO to create a little movement in the sync. So we're going to start turning up the sync here of our analog wavetable. You can see we start to add even more of that metallic-y sound that we're going for. So I'm going to set it to about 2.53. And now you can hear without the FM. We still have that movement, but we don't have that tonality. So now we're going to click the orange plus here on this new LFO we just made. We're going to map it to the sync. And a lot of times less is more, so we're just going to turn this up to 1%. And you kind of hear it gives it like a little bit of a swing. So without this LFO, and with it. So one more time. So it's just adding a little bit of pitch movement to the sync here. Alright, so that's going to be it for our generators window here. We're going to move on to our effects section. So we actually won't be working with the effects within FacePlant. Like I said in the last tutorial, I'm going to be using a lot of Serum effects. It's familiar to me and I like the way it sounds. So until I get more familiar with the FacePlant effects, I'm just going to be working with a lot of Serum effects. So I'm going to throw Serum effects on this sound, and the first thing I'm going to turn on here is this filter. I'm going to go to the miscellaneous section, select reverb, and set this to about 75. Doesn't sound very great right now, but we have to get the movement we have going on in FacePlant. So we're going to replicate that same LFO we made, LFO 1, or at least something very similar. Alright, so we're now going to map this LFO 1 to the cutoff. And we're going to leave it all the way up. And you notice we don't hear anything. It's because we have to go over here and select Note Latch to hear the effect. We're also going to want to replicate the same settings. So we're going to set this to rate 1/2 and trigger to match what we have going on in phase plant. Now you can hear we're really starting to get close to that sound. The next effect we want to add is this compressor. I'm going to select multiband and go to about 9.8. Something around there. You can also double click to punch in values. And again, if you don't want to use Serum compressor, you can use, oh, sorry about that. You're welcome to use Ableton stock compressor as well. So I'm going to use Serums this time, and the next effect we want to add is this hyper dimension. We're going to turn the mix down to about 16%. This is just going to create a space for our sound, but we don't want to add too much of the effect or we're going to get phasing issues. So we're going to turn the size down to about 1%, very low size, and then turn the mix to about 35. Now you'll notice down here in the LFO that we have this bar running across. And if you're familiar with Serum, you know how this re-trigger works. So because we're working with Serum effects, there's kind of no way around avoiding this random trigger. But it's really cool because then you can resample this sound and bounce it down to audio and get like a ton of different variations of it, depending on where you play it from. So if I play it from right here, or here, they're going to sound a little bit different. And Serum effects is totally optional. Without it, still have a pretty cool sound. You just need to move this phase a bit more. Let me bring phase plant back here. But the combination of moving this phase with Serum effects creates a really cool effect in my opinion. Now you might have noticed the sound got a little quiet as well, and like I said before, the post-processing is super important on this sound. So I'm going to hop into Ableton here and copy a PHAT rack onto this sound. And we will immediately start to hear a difference. And that's pretty much how I made this sound, guys. Nice final thing to add to this is a little bit of pitch bending. I had that on the examples that I played earlier. So with the pitch bend, and again, mess around with these harmonics and the percentage of this phase, these shapes, and make this sound your own, guys. Really hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial, and once again, if you want to stay up to date with new phase plant tutorials, make sure you click that subscribe button below. I'm going to be putting out new tutorials every week, guys, so make sure you click that subscribe button. Anyway, I'm out of here. Peace.